Hello, Dave Connor here with a cue from Gladiator, Am I Not Merciful, which I've transcribed, the first section of it, and analyzed. The reason being is that I mentioned this piece as a very good example of Hans Zimmer's part writing, which was in response to someone saying, Hans Zimmer can't write for the orchestra. I happen to think he's a particularly gifted composer, so we're either going to see that kind of thing in here or all kinds of problems that we should be able to fix. I chose this piece of music because it was the last thing of his that I had heard. So it's quite literally a random sample. Okay, so first we'll listen to it in the strings as it was written, and then we'll look at it in piano so we can see the raw musical information. Here goes. Okay, let's talk about the first 8 bars. Okay, this is a ground bass, which is a short melodic idea in the bass that repeats and you compose over above in different ways. The ground repeats with a slight variation. These are the 2 versions of the ground that will be used. Second voice is added here. He keeps doing this cadence. So he starts his 2 voice writing here. So he's adding 1 voice at a time. I should also point out we are in the Aeolian mode, which makes the dominant cadence, if you will, 7/1. The Aeolian mode essentially is the notes of F major starting from D. So you get the B flat. Normally with a ground bass, you're going to have multiple voices above it, whether they're chordal or polyphonic, multiple melodies. That's what you expect. Adding to a ground bass 1 voice at a time is not how it's traditionally used. So what you do is you have Hans creating a sort of a hybrid form to serve his purposes. But the point being is he sticks rigidly to the ground bass and to the repetition with variation and to this cadence. All right, so here's our second voice. Okay, he adds his, what essentially is another melodic voice. And because he knows he's going to keep adding voices, he's writing very locally. He's writing down there. Well, you can tell from the first instance, this is all about the lows, the resonances in strings. Keep in mind, all these here are reinforced down the octave. So he's having a bit of fun really low in strings. You don't hear that very often. Keelar will do that. You'll get bits of that here and there. But this is almost a little study in low string writing and sort of what you can get away with. And this whole piece is notated in the bass clef. I think that's unusual. With these thirds, he's writing intervallically, melodically. From here, you get what's actually a naturally occurring tritone. The tritone is something that everybody turns to when they need attention or a sense of foreboding. But here, he's merely moved stepwise along his scale in these two voices. He's staying very strictly here to what he has set up. He's set up stepwise motion as a fundamental part of this. It's in the bass. He's set up this cadence. He set up the Aeolian mode. He's really going to stick closely to all this stuff. Several times he holds a tone above and lets the ground bass change the harmonies by moving underneath. Here he's widening his intervals and gets to his widest interval on that absolutely beautiful minor 7 at the cadence where he has to go to that harmony. Here is a little musical interlude because the ground bass starts up here again. This is different. Here you get the DSE ray on top. And see, he breaks away a little bit. This is a two-bar interlude, but he makes it something. The DSE ray, that's in Close Encounters, like it's everywhere. It's in Berlioz's Symphony Fantasy. It's everywhere. So he's having a bit of fun. You suppose anybody caught that? At this point here, he starts this up again, which is an exact repetition of bars 9 through 12. It's this again. Up to here, right? So now he departs. This is what this section does. Parallel sevenths. Even on the piano, very rich. And now, and this is very interesting to me, he's added this third voice. Okay, here's what's interesting. The ground bass is starting up again. And he's added a third voice. Where does he add it? In the middle. Because the top voice is very clearly stepwise. And the bass is, there's your 7 to 1. Starting over. So, this composer who supposedly doesn't know what he's doing is all over his formal structure, which he's given himself from the first bar. He's using the ground, he's writing against it intervallically, he's cadencing, and when he adds a third voice, it's in the middle. And by the way, this keeps showing up as well. And we know that it's the middle voice that's new, because look, it keeps doing new stuff. And particularly that same bit. In fact, if you look at these, the C to the B flat, it becomes a theme. Here it is upside down. This is not that. This is more stepwise motion. Anytime you see just two quarter notes, it's a C and a B flat, and it's a cadential figure. It's his C7 to D minor, his 7 to 1. Now, well, we'll get to this, but he turns it upside down here for a bit of, he inverts it and he changes the harmony. It's very nice. You know, as I said, he's thoughtful in the extreme. I mean, who builds one voice at a time, and then one of the voices added comes in the middle, becomes thematic? I don't do. Who does that? Now, this is a very nice section here. Let's listen from here. Okay, and you can just bet, because he's just cadence 7-1, the ground here comes. So there's a lot of structure totally adhered to. So from here, this is an interesting bit of writing here. Now that's beautiful, right? Nice open fifths. But look at what he gets to on the next beat. Minor 9. Okay, so we have parallel ninths here, right? He's opening up to a ninth. And he proceeds all the way. He maintains that figure like a sequence. He's parallel with the outside ninths. Now, this is the ground, right? So that's kind of carved in stone. Let's see. Yeah, he can't change that. He won't. So he's writing above it. These are his choices. So he's going parallel with ninths. That's a great hip sound. But he alleviates that parallelism with really a classic contrary motion in an inner voice. That's how you alleviate parallelisms. Go the other way in an inner voice, which gives him a nice third in the bass, but listen on top. But he sells it by approaching it. This is all textbook, by the way. He's approaching a dissonance stepwise, alleviating the parallelism in contrary motion, like he's had his nose in the books. Now, if you listen to it, and please do go to the YouTube link and listen to the entire thing. It's really something. It's just something else. This is a first. It's a textural change with major triad. This is F major. We have not really had a full-blown major triad. I think we've got our first minor triads right here in first inversion. This is intervallic writing. Open fifth. You know, he's arriving at these harmonies through his stepwise motion. Now he's added a nice sequence. Very nice. He wants F major here, but look how it's put together with 2/6. So with low strings, and keep in mind this is doubled down the octave, he gets the lowest bass tone he's going to get out of those strings without playing around with samples or something, and voices it in its most resonant way that he can in this neighborhood. Listen for this in his recording. It jumps right out at you. Now he proceeds essentially stepwise, but of course he can. He's in 6. It's all very forgiving. He doesn't have to alleviate anything. He's given you all the best of this world, open 5th all day long. He's moving stepwise. So you get a little Stravinsky there. Now he needs a major triad. It's a 6/4. It's so noble and beautiful because 6/4s are. Then he moves stepwise because he's in 6. But now he's going to go back to the 11th because he's running all these cool harmonies at us. And once again, stepwise and below and above. Now, here, you get what should be F major, correct? But he's not going to do that. He's avoided that. He just gave you a big F major that didn't sound like root position F major at all. He puts his 2-beat figure into this, what looks like an F structure, and gives you B flat major 7th. And it resolves to an F major on the weak beat. Plus, this sounds very stepwise anyway. So there's a lot of weaving, there's a lot of thought going into this. From the F. Nice. Just a G minor triad, but it's so welcome because we haven't been in that territory. And remember, he's still writing over the ground. Listen to how nice that G minor is. Treats it in a classical way by dropping the bass and keeps going stepwise in the bass. And here's our cadence. Okay, so that's a cadence point there. But he's got to repeat that chord to start the ground bass over, right? So what does he do? He does the classic by moving the inner voices or by re-voicing the chord. He can't bear to just repeat this, which is what a hack would do. Well, I got this. I got to start over. Here we go. And if you listen, you can tell Hans told them, bring that out. And they do. They really make a deal out of that. You really hear it. Energy might flag and they drop off in our chord repetition. So he has these guys jump on these. He lifts them both higher in the register. It energizes it, and then you start over. Okay, so now you have a little modal change there. You've got the held tone with things sliding around underneath, which he did very early. You know, this is, Schumann and Beethoven here, really. Chords moving underneath the held tone. Let's see what this sounds like. Nice, right? Up to the F6, and then this is interesting. Then I'm on this chord now. What's going on here? This is what the whole piece is about. This is an experiment in the low end. And he's really stacked it up, and it has the effect. It's like, what's going on there? You know, it's a real build in every way. And then, the melodic figure. There's your... the consistencies. This is film music. There's ways of sort of basically referring to your previous material. But this is a very strict adherence to something laid out. It's a constant reuse of material. It's a minimal amount of material constantly reused. That's Beethoven. That's Beethoven's Fifth. That's what he's doing here. Let's see. All right, so we went from this figure, and now we get, this is very nice, and we've seen this figure. I mean, what isn't he reusing? Everything is woven from the same basic material. These are all the tried and true traditional compositional techniques that are taught, and people come around and say, well, I don't think this person can write because has he been taught? You know, I've often thought you could teach with Hans Zimmer's music because you can hear all these classic devices in his music. Now this is really nice. And then right, so we go from this D minor it's a beautiful voicing, whether it's here or rock and roll. Oh no, sorry. See, the mistake I just made there is the mistake people would make. Oh yeah, cool voicing down to a root position. That's what I just did. That's what a keyboard player does when he's writing. His fingers tell him what to do. Whoever this guy is, he's managing things so carefully. He's gone back up. He wants F6. And if you listen to Hans Zimmer's music, he loves 6 chords. But all those guys did. All those classical guys. Okay, let's go from here. What's going on up here? It's our cadence point, 7-1. Listen to how beautiful this is, because, and this is what I listen for in every film composer. When can they take their shots? They're very, very restricted by the visuals, by the story. You know, they can't just go start having a bunch of musical fun. Most composers like to write a beautiful passage. That's just what they love to do. So what does he do when he goes up here? This sounds like Korngold. I say that because there's a passage in his opera, Die Todstadt, similar. But it's absolutely beautiful. But Hans has taken a shot there, and he's just, and it's a clinic in orchestration. Here's the stability. That's going to sound over. And then you get chords with that. A minor over E. B flat 6 over D, and there's your C9. And listen in the piece, this is beautiful. Of course he's going to do that. He had one bar, you give him a shot, and here comes this beautiful stuff. He's got a moment to do it. Now, here, let's get back to our sort of original point. Where do we make changes and fix this? Right? Because he doesn't know what he's doing. Right? According to somebody. What do you want to change? I don't want to change one note. I'm too busy going, oh, cool, nice. I get that. And then, you know, these passages, they're so thoughtful. Where do we change a note in here? Here's his fourth voice, by the way. That's where that entered. It's just lovely writing. Completely informed writing. As I said, you can use it to teach. This is a ground bass. In fact, you could teach ground bass in a sort of a different use of it. Because it's not Purcell and it's not Bach's use of it. This is Hans Zimmer's take on the ground bass. And he stuck to it like it was an assignment. He sneaks the Dies Irae in there. You know, I tell people, hey, I heard something in Hans music. Oh, no, you didn't. And whatever he used, did he use 60 basses? I don't know. One thing I will point out, you don't hear the timbral difference that you normally do between the basses and cellos. You hear the difference in weight, in size. Through his whole procedure, whether it's sampling or whether it was only basses or whatever, he eliminated the timbral difference between the lower and upper voicings to enhance the resonance between them. There's no timbral change. So, for instance, if you have two bassoons riding low against each other, it's the same basic timbre. That's a completely different sound than a bassoon and a bass clarinet. Those two timbres, you might like that resonance, but they don't enhance in the way the two of the same instruments resonate together. So he smoothed that out. That's part of his process. And it's a very modern look. Everything in film now, literally the sound levels have skyrocketed in the last 30 years, 40. This section here eventually gets to a sort of Mozartian thing with full-blown, huge diminished seventh chords. You just don't hear those in film. You hear those if somebody's doing a period piece, right? But this is, this is the Gladiator. This is ancient Rome. This is not Mozart. But he gets into Mozart's territory of the Requiem or whatever. And here it is. It's just blown up in this beautiful way. To me, that's what you'd expect in the modern era. That Mahler is so much bigger than Beethoven, who's bigger than Haydn. By the time you get to Hans Zimmer, you've got a new approach, because of sampling and so on and forth, to attaining that size. He does it organically, and he does it through other means. His synth programming and experiments, those are all studies in resonance. I'm sure you could teach a complete thing on that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I did. And thanks for stopping by. Okay.